Chapter 5. Moral Power of Autosuggestion. Leaving for a while the subject of physical health cures affected by autosuggestion, let us discuss the role of the latter in relation to our moral well-being. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it, said the man of wisdom thousands of years ago, and his words are as true now as they were then. And what is such training, if not the art of implanting a mass of suggestions in the young, receptive mind? Those suggestions may be good or bad, and upon them depends a child's whole destiny. I shall have more to say on the subject of the rational and scientific education of children later on, but for the moment I should like to insist upon the importance of suggestion and autosuggestion for society. Moral health is essential to physical health, and it is the interest of the community at large to improve the moral health of its feebler elements. Granted the efficiency of autosuggestion in the accomplishment of this task, it must be clear to all that the new method opens up a magnificent vista of possibilities in the direction of social progress. It furnishes us the means of combating victoriously the bad streaks in our nature, whether inherited or acquired, and of developing our intelligence, of curbing a wayward imagination, of adding balance to our judgment, modifying our mentality, correcting our moral weakness, while curing our bodily ills. Its generalization must conduce to individual and social reforms, and the time may come when, freed of the evil suggestions, which are so many poisons debilitating humanity both spiritually and physically, the world being purged itself of all its morbid elements, the criminal classes, may embark upon a new and glorious phase of fuller harmony. Psychic culture as necessary as physical. We all recognize the value of physical culture. It is not too much to say that its renaissance in our own country and the consequent building up of a generation of robust, strong-limbed young men, full of stamina and resistance, is due in a considerable measure of our victory in the Great War. While psychic culture is equally necessary, it will teach us to think simply, sanely. It will teach us to realize that we can be and should be the masters of events and not their playthings. Psychic culture, through the medium of suggestion and autosuggestion, corrects our moral deformities, just as physical culture corrects our bodily defects. We cannot all become champions, but we can all develop our personality in the spiritual or moral domain, as we can all increase our muscular force by appropriate exercise. Autosuggestion to be used to combat criminal tendencies. Autosuggestion, then, I am persuaded, is destined to be applied more and more generally in the world's efforts to stamp out crime. I have had occasion to try my method at Nancy upon a few boys of bad characters, whose precocious criminal instincts had led them to the reformatory. I believe good results were attained, but unfortunately I was unable to pursue the experiments over a long period, as the poor youth, sent in batches, remained only a few weeks before being transferred to the central establishment in another town. However, the French authorities are quite in favor of prolonged trial of my method being made, and I hope to devote myself to this task in the near future. I may say, too, that I found great interest manifested in America in this question of autosuggestion as a remedy against the growth of crime. Power of suggestion in crime. It is a well-known fact that crime is contagious. From time to time, every country has crime waves or epidemics, simply because the mind is influenced by suggestions from no matter what source, more or less according to the degree of sensitiveness or strength of character of the individual. In France, some time ago, the papers were full of details of a daring train robbery. Immediately afterward, there was a repetition of the crime perpetuated in exactly the same manner, and within a fortnight 5 or 6 similar train assaults took place. The details of execution being identical in all cases, the epidemic was the result of suggestion. Only recently, Paris had a strange and striking illustration of the power of suggestion and autosuggestion, the one provoking the other and translating them into acts. A maniac pricked a woman shopping in a dry goods store with a needle or a syringe, injecting some liquid which caused a swelling of the part affected. The papers published a few lines about it, and the next day 2 or 3 other similar cases were recorded. The number continued to grow till the victims were counted in scores, and not the least strange feature was that, while suggestions created the prickers, autosuggestion created the victims. Numbers of women being led by sheer imagination to believe themselves pricked and to feel the pain of a sudden jab. Curiously enough, there was a similar epidemic in the time of Louis V. Another example of crime contagion is to be found in the scalping series in the 17th century, when for a certain period not a day passed without one or more women being shore of their hair by mad-brained ruffians. 20 years ago there was a similar epidemic. The cinema, the movies, again must be regarded in some respects as a school of crime by reason of the terrible effects of suggestion on ill-balanced or unformed minds. And the craze of the Nick Carter style of story has been responsible for the wrecking of many young lives in my country. Suggestion in reformatories, the role of suggestion in provoking crime being thus demonstrated, it is logical to assume that suggestion is equally effective as an arm against crime. The idea is everything, since it carries the germ of action. There is a vast scope for suggestion in reformatories. It could be practiced collectively. With the seed of suggestion sown indiscriminately at first, the good ground would soon be discovered by its fruit. Then the good should be separated from the bad by virtue of the eternal law of the contagion of ideas. The subjects influenced by the suggestions would strengthen each other, while the neighborhood of the refractory ones would tend to add to their resistance to good suggestion. Vice can be conquered. To people who ask if vice really can be conquered, I answered emphatically yes. By suggestion, long and often repeated, the character can be modified. A proof that education or suggestion does modify a character is that the instinct of self-preservation, the strongest of all, can be overcome, as witness the many acts of sublime and total self-sacrifice in favor of the others recorded by every epoch. Suggestion acts as a brake to bad habits. That is the negative role. It has a positive part to play in acting as a propelling force for good impulses. Applied systematically, scientifically, there is no doubt that a large portion of the classes branded as criminal could be reclaimed and thousands of outcasts transformed into clean thinking, clean living, and useful citizens. This is naturally especially true in regard to the young, with their keen, vigorous imaginations open to every impression. Surely it is the duty of those in authority to see that their imagination be fed with something better than the germs of crime. The susceptibility of youth is such that it is easy, save in the fortunately rare cases of wholly bad characters, to create vivid images or ideas of good actions in their minds. Once anchored in the subconscious, those ideas must inevitably develop and eventually exteriorize themselves into acts. End of chapter.